Introducing Dominate with Data, how to use Google's free tools to sell more cars, with Chris Derringer, Chief Marketing Officer at DealerOn, Inc. Please give him a warm welcome.
Good morning. Thank you all for coming this morning. My name is Chris Derringer. I am the Chief Marketing Officer at DealerOn. I have been optimizing websites, both e-commerce sites, some of the biggest e-commerce sites in the world, small local business websites, car dealer websites. I've been doing this for almost 20 years, since 2001. I am excited today to be sharing something that I'm extremely passionate about, and that is teaching car dealers how to make better decisions, better marketing decisions, using real data, using Google Analytics and Google's other free data tools to make smarter business decisions about how to spend their marketing dollars to sell as many cars as possible. Before I get started, I'm going to provide for everyone 4 data points that I'm going to reference back over the course of my session. And I want everyone to keep them in mind because they're critical. And again, I'm going to return to them during the course of my presentation. The first one is 2, less than 2. The average car buyer in 2017 will visit less than 2 car dealership showrooms during the course of their buying process. The second one is 100%. I will guarantee you that everyone in here, 100% of you, have Google Analytics on your website. When I started working with car dealers almost a decade ago, when I would come to NADA or other conferences to speak to everyone, I would actually ask a question, a survey question of the audience. How many people have Google Analytics on their website? And only about 50 or 60% of the audience actually would. Today, I guarantee you that number is 100%. Everyone in here has Google Analytics on their website. The problems that we are going to get into and that we're going to address and I'm going to help you solve are that we are not using our own Google Analytics and we don't know how to use it and get the most out of it. The third thing I'm going to talk about is 100%. 100% of car shoppers today will use Google search engines when researching which vehicle and which dealership they are going to visit when buying their car. And the last data point that I'm going to talk about is one that I'm sure all of you are familiar with, and that is the marketing and advertising budget that you have. It is the second biggest expense on the average dealer's P&L. Roughly $500,000 a year is the average NADA franchise dealer's marketing and advertising budget. With the exception of your inventory and how much you've invested in the inventory on your lot, the second biggest line item on your P&L is your investment in marketing and advertising. So I want to talk a little bit about some of Google's assets that we're going to be taking advantage of to sell more cars more profitably. We're going to be talking about how to optimize your dealership, your website, your marketing for organic search and SEM on desktop, SEO and SEM on desktop. We're going to be talking about how to optimize your dealership for SEO and SEM on mobile. We're going to be talking about how to reach all of Google's users as intelligently as possible to sell as many cars as efficiently as possible with your marketing dollars. And lastly, and probably most importantly, we're going to be talking about how to optimize your dealership's website with actual data, using the Google Analytics and Google's other data tools to connect your dealership together and understand how consumers are using your website. Now, the reason that we have all of these data elements that we can take advantage of is because of Google's powerful free services. How many people in here know what is the biggest email platform in the United States? It is Gmail. Gmail now has over 1 billion users worldwide. How many people know what the biggest the highest penetration desktop browser is in the United States. It's not MSIE, it's not Firefox, it's not Netscape or Mozilla. It is Chrome. More than 50% of American consumers now use the Chrome browser on the desktop, and Google gets all of that user data. The most popular desktop search engine is, of course, Google, 70% penetration. For mobile, it's 90%. We have all of these tools. We have the 100% of dealer websites that use Google Analytics. Google has all of these tools that we can take advantage of to help sell more cars more profitably. Now I want to talk about how we're going to set up our Google Analytics and all of the other Google tools so that we're getting the most bang for our marketing dollars. The first thing is you must own your own Google Analytics account. Every one of you has Google Analytics on your website. How many of you know for a fact that you have your own Google Analytics code, your dealership's code on your website? I will guarantee you that it is less than 60%. It is critical to have your own analytics code on your website for a number of reasons. Number one, if you change website providers or digital agencies and you have been using their Google Analytics code, you have lost any historical reference. You can't get that data back. You are relying on your website provider or your digital agency to set up the goals for your website if you simply use their account. Their goals may differ from your goals. Their goals, I've seen digital agencies that have set up goals like this, may simply be 7 pages or more during a visit. It may be a session time of longer than 2 minutes. They may be counting that as a goal. In my opinion, those are not legitimate goals that your dealership should be trying to drive. But if you don't set up your own analytics, you're at the mercy of whomever is doing that. If you want to filter out the IP addresses for your dealership's internal website traffic, you have to do that through your own analytics. The second thing that we're going to do is we are going to have our own Google Search Console account. How many folks in here know what Google Search Console accounts are? It used to be called Google Webmaster Tools. Google has simply changed the naming of the tool. What is important about it, even though it's a little bit technical, is this is what Google uses to communicate to the owner of the website the health of their website. So if Google de-indexes your site for some reason, they are going to tell you that they've done that, and they are going to tell you why they've done that in the Google Search Console tool. And if your dealership doesn't have your own access to that information, you're going to be relying on your website provider to tell you, hey, we've gotten you de-indexed from Google. It's probably important enough for your dealership to know if something like that happens and not simply rely on one of your vendors. The third thing we're going to do is we are going to own our own AdWords account. It is 2017. Every one of you should have complete visibility to how every dollar is being spent by your digital agency or whomever you are paying money to invest money on your behalf in AdWords. It is not sufficient for them to simply send you a report. You need to be able to log into your own AdWords account and see how every dollar that you are investing is being spent. Google actually encourages agencies to do this. The fourth thing that we're going to do is we're going to link our Search Console account to our analytics account. The fifth thing, we're going to link our AdWords account to our analytics account. And the sixth thing that we're going to do is we are going to ask any third party that we are spending money with to drive traffic to our website. we are going to ask them to build tracking URLs that will flow perfectly into Google Analytics with Google's URL Builder. When we put all of these Google products together, and when we also include a call tracking provider that integrates with Google Analytics, we are now going to have 100% visibility into how our digital marketing is performing, how our website is performing, and how the money that we're investing in our marketing, how much return we are getting from those dollars. It is critical for all of us in here to optimize our website. It is, except for your brand name in your local marketplace, your website is your most important, your most valuable marketing asset, by far. How many folks in here are spending at least 50% of their marketing budget in digital? It's increasing every year, but there's still plenty of dealers that have 70, 80, even 90% of their marketing budgets in traditional media. That's fine. If that's working for you, I'm going to give you some data later on that might change your mind about that. But that's not what we're talking about here. Regardless of how you're spending your money, if you ask car buyers after they bought a vehicle in your showroom, what marketing media was their most recent touch point before they came in? What drove them to your dealership that day? 40% of them will say, I have done business there before, or I came in as a result of a friend, or I know family members who work for the dealership. Of the people who actually report a marketing channel that brought them to the dealership, 47% said it was the internet, it was a digital ad, it was the website. Only 3% say newspaper or TV. 1% say direct mail or radio. Here's the point. It doesn't matter where you're spending your marketing dollars. People who are going to buy cars from you are going to your website before they're going to your physical showroom. And if your website doesn't give them a reason to come visit your showroom that weekend, they're not coming. In 2005, more than a decade ago, the average car buyer went to between 4 and 5 dealerships. Heck, when I was a kid, you spent several weekends driving around to local dealers to figure out what vehicle you were going to buy, what dealer you were going to buy it from. It could take a whole month. In 2017, we're looking at like 1.3 dealers that the average car buyer is going to physically visit when they buy a car. That means roughly 70% of car buyers are visiting one physical showroom. One. How is that possible? We know that the average car buyer is spending more time than ever researching their purchase, figuring out what car they're going to buy and where they're going to buy it from. Well, the reason is they're doing all of their comparison shopping online. They're figuring out what car they're going to buy, and then they're going to figure out where they're going to buy it from, and then they're going to go to that place and buy that car. And if your website doesn't give them a reason to come visit your dealership, you are never going to sell them a car. They're going to your competitor's dealership, and 70% of the time, they're selling them the car. That's why it's critical that however you're spending your $500,000 in marketing, that your website has got to provide your consumers, your prospects, a reason to come to your dealership that weekend, a reason to call, a reason to submit a lead so that your sales team can start interacting with them. One of the reasons that we use analytics with all of our clients is because we've actually seen the data. The average car dealer has a website that converts less than 2% of their traffic to a form submission, a lead form that has a name, phone number, and email address. Look, we manage thousands of websites, and I've seen the same franchise dealers in the same city selling the same model lineup to the same demographics. One of them will have a conversion rate of 7, 8%. So for every 100 visitors to their website, they're generating 7 or 8 leads. I've seen other dealers generating 1 or 2. Again, same model lineup, same city, same clients. How does that happen? Because the dealer who is generating a 7 or 8% conversion rate, they are optimizing their website with data, with analytics. There are still too many dealerships in our industry that do their optimization with the HIPPO method, the highest paid person in the organization. The highest paid employee who's actually influencing the decision about the homepage design, about the calls to action on the website. I can go to 20 websites right now, and I will guarantee you that I will eventually find a website with a homepage with a giant frog or a giant beaver, some animal that is representative of their dealership brand that is taking up space that should be used for an inventory search widget if they were paying attention to their data. I will find you a homepage that has a grainy drone video of a dealership parking lot, and looking at the page will almost give you a seizure. But some dealer thinks that that is a really cool look for their homepage. I will be able to find you a website that has an enormous banner advertising some lease special for that month. There will be a call to action that you can barely find. And when I click through on that call to action, I'll come to a page that doesn't even reference the actual lease itself. It's because we are still spending too much time having the highest paid person in the organization optimize the site and not paying enough attention to our analytics. If I've got 2 dealers in the same market with the average visitor count, as we've seen across all websites, of roughly 4,000 unique visitors, and one of them has a 2% conversion, he is giving his sales team 80 opportunities to sell a vehicle. If he gets that conversion rate up to 6%, he's got 240 opportunities for his sales team to bring someone in that weekend and sell them a car. If your BDC, if your sales department is pretty good, you're going to convert about 15% of those leads to sales. That can be an incremental 24 cars. And I've heard plenty of people these days saying, oh, leads don't matter anymore. Leads don't matter anymore. Listen, website conversion rates are down because a higher proportion of dealer website traffic is now mobile. And mobile consumers are less likely to submit a website lead. They're on a phone. It's a little bit harder. However, what could be more critical in this day and age than you know that the consumer is visiting one physical dealership, then actually interacting with that consumer before they have figured out which dealer they're going to? It is as critical, if not more critical now, to interact with as many consumers through your sales department before they make the decision about which dealer they're going to go visit. So how are we going to measure the performance of our website? We're going to set goals for our site. We're going to assign values for our site, and we're going to actually measure. We're going to measure the value that the changes we make to our website and the changes that we make to our marketing, how those impact the value that our website produces. What are some goals that we need to set up for our website? Number 1, obviously, website leads, form submissions. Secondly, calls to the dealership. Someone's on a mobile device, clicks the click to call button, you better be tracking that as a goal. A consumer's on a mobile device and clicks on your address and immediately opens a Google map with directions to your dealership. Man, we want a lot of those. We need to set a goal so that we're tracking every time that happens. There are going to be secondary goals for our site that aren't as critical as those others, but that are things that we would like the average consumer that visits our website to do. We would like a desktop user to actually print a coupon. We would like our mobile customers to save a mobile coupon to their e-wallet, assuming that our website has that functionality. We would like consumers to actually play some of the videos of the vehicles on our site. We want to count that action. We want to track that action. We would like to understand when someone is on a desktop browser and visits our map and directions page. Again, that's not as critical as a web form submission, but it is something valuable. It indicates purchase intent, and we want to get more of that occurring on our website. So how are we going to set up the tracking for the goals on our website? Google Analytics actually gives you 4 ways. I am going to enthusiastically recommend that you don't use 2 of them. If I'm a dealer, I don't care how long one of my consumers is on my website. I don't care how many pages they visit. If they visit 20 pages on my blog, which I have up to generate good local content, but if they never see my inventory, they never interact with my service department, that visit isn't particularly valuable to me. They could spend 20 minutes and view 100 pages on my blog, and if they never interact with some way for me to sell them a car or service their vehicle, that's not particularly valuable to me. However, someone could be on my site for 30 seconds, come to the homepage, find the vehicle they want, submit a lead. Man, I want to track that. That's hugely valuable. So we're going to set up tracking on every URL that indicates a thank you page on our website. Every one of them. We also want to differentiate between trade leads, coupon leads, vehicle leads, service appointments. We want to track each one of those things, but we want to have a separate goal for each one. Secondly, events. You're going to need a little bit of help, some partnership with your website provider to set this up in Google Analytics, but it's easy to do and you need to do it. Okay? Every time a mobile consumer on your website clicks the click to call button, that is a trackable event that you should be tracking. That is by far the majority of your mobile conversions. You can actually tell every single time that a consumer hit click to call what page they were on your website. You can tell what marketing channel brought them to your website. You need to be tracking these things, measuring these things, so that you can optimize your website and your marketing to get more of these. Now, not all of these goals are created equal. A VDP view is clearly not as valuable as a web form, a form submission. A phone call is obviously much more valuable than someone viewing your map and directions on a desktop browser. So we want to set relative values of all of these goals. I would recommend starting with roughly $50 for a website lead on a vehicle. There are still some dealers out there who are buying third-party vehicle leads for 16 to 18 bucks. They're about as effective as a website lead coming off of your website. So just doing a little bit of math, 3 times 16 or 17 gets you to about 50 bucks. Trade leads we have also found that mobile leads are a little bit more valuable than a pure desktop vehicle lead. They convert better, and in some cases, they actually have higher margin for the vehicles that come out of them. You start providing relative values of how important each one of these goals is to your dealership, and you can start assessing how much value each change that you make on your website is producing for you, or how damaging it was. You may make changes on your website that actually hurt its performance. You need to measure and track those. The last thing that we're going to talk about in terms of setting up our tracking is making sure that all of our third-party providers are using Google's URL Builder. If you're spending money on a local radio station's website to drive traffic to yours through a banner, or a local newspaper, or a Facebook campaign that is intended to drive traffic to your dealership website, or a third-party website where the intention is to drive traffic to your website, you need to require of them, if you're going to invest money in those campaigns, that they set up the appropriate tracking so you can measure the exact amount of traffic that's coming in, the number of leads that are being produced by the traffic, and the number of phone calls that are associated with the traffic. You need to track all these things, and if you're investing money in these channels, you should require it of the provider so that you can measure and understand how much value they're delivering for you. Now that we've set all of our analytics up, we're going to talk about how we can make more money on our search engine marketing dollars. How many folks in here know roughly the zip codes that they're selling vehicles to? When we have worked with our dealers, we've found that about 20 to 30 zip codes will comprise roughly 75% of the vehicles that they sell when we analyze their DMS data. Some dealers it's more, some dealers it's less. Depends on how dense the population is in your area and how big your brand name is in your marketplace. When you're doing your search engine marketing geotargeting, your starting point should be the zip codes in which you actually are selling vehicles right now. If you're spending a lot of money in zip codes or states even, where consumers are not going to be driving to your dealership to buy their car, you're probably spending your money, even if you're generating phone calls and leads, in the wrong places. We're going to be targeting 6 different customer personae, types of people that we're going to identify by their keyword phrases that they're using. We're going to segment how we're spending our money into these 6 groups. The first one is customers looking for you, actually typing your dealership's name into Google to find your website and get to your dealership. The second group is people looking for your franchise type. Toyota dealers near me, Toyota dealers Washington, D.C., Honda dealers in Richmond. Every time that someone is typing this type of phrase in, we're going to want to show up for those. We also are going to build a strategy around people looking for our competitors. You're still relevant for someone looking for the Toyota dealer, the Honda dealer, the Chrysler, the Ford dealer across town. If you sell the same new inventory lineup, you're still relevant for that consumer. We're also going to talk about when it's appropriate to sell your new inventory, your used inventory, and how we should be taking advantage of some of Google's new changes and updates to sell more service. So one of the reasons that we are going to prioritize our spend through these 6 personae is that we do not have enough money to be in front of every search that someone does in Google for something that we could possibly sell them wherever they are. Google periodically does auto consumer studies where they will take 300 or 500 consumers and they will follow them for a 3-month period or however long their car purchase process takes them. Here's an example of Stacy. It took Stacy 3 months to research and then buy her new car. During that time, she did 139 unique Google searches. I will guarantee you your dealership would not want to appear for all 139. The one we really want to appear for is the 139th. If we've spent all of our money appearing for all the rest of them, someone else is going to outbid us. So what we want to do is combine the distance that the person is from our dealership. We want to target the zip codes that we know are effective, and we want to combine that with the persona of the person looking for us. All 6 of these different consumer segments. So for consumers who are looking for us, anybody in our PMA, we want coming to our dealership. For our franchise, the same thing. If they're looking for our competitors and they're near us and we know that we sell vehicles to their zip code, man, we want to figure out how we can get in front of that consumer. Once we know that we are effectively as possible spending our money in those first three, we're going to look at how we can market our new inventory and how we can market our used inventory to those consumers. But not until we have taken care of those first three areas. And lastly, and in a separate bucket, we're going to target service intenders, people looking for service in our area, potentially people who've been in our service lanes before. And we're going to talk about how we're going to do that. First off, customers looking for you. When you connect Google Search Console with Google Analytics, you can actually get a report in Search Console which shows the number of times that someone searched for your dealership's name in Google. Not how many people came to your website after doing that, how many people searched. And the numbers that we're going to look at right here are very important for us understanding how we need to set up our search strategies. This dealer is number one for every desktop and every mobile search that anyone conducts on Google. They are number one. However, only 44% of desktop users who type their name into a Google search end up at their website. Only 27% of mobile users who put their dealership name into their phone end up at their website, even though they are number one every single time in organic results. Why is that? Well, about a year ago, a little over a year ago, Google changed how they are presenting local search results to consumers. It used to be that if someone was searching for your business and your map listing was well optimized, you were going to be number one. Now, Google will provide 3 local ads if there are 3 people who are willing to buy that keyword search. So, if you have 3 local competitors who are buying your dealership's brand on Google, when someone on a mobile phone looks for your dealership, they're going to have to scroll down through 3 other listings and realize that you're not one of those 3 before they find your listing to call you. That's why you can be number one in organic for mobile and get 27% of the clicks. I encourage all of you to set up your Search Console with your analytics so that you can see the data for yourself for your dealership. But this is why it is critical, absolutely critical, that you have to buy your own brand name. How many people in here have been told by an agency, their website provider, by someone who claimed to know what they were doing in digital marketing, how many people have been told you should not buy your dealership's name, you're wasting money? Those are free clicks that you were going to get anyway. You're the number one organic listing. I will guarantee you, if you haven't been told, someone at your dealership has been told that almost every year for the last decade. I still talk to very sophisticated dealers who have told me that some of the biggest websites providers, some of the biggest agencies in our industry are telling them exactly that. If someone tells you that, it means they do not know what they are talking about. 5 years ago, before Google started obscuring the keywords that were coming as a result of organic searches, we actually did a couple of case studies with some of our dealers who were not spending any money on paid search for their own brand. We measured their organic traffic coming on their own brand, the number of leads that they were generating, the number of phone calls, And then we started doing paid search on those same keywords. And we found that there was almost no cannibalization of their organic traffic and their organic leads. To the extent that there was, it was maybe 5, 10, at most 15%. And do you know what? Google themselves have done this same study across thousands of clients, across dozens of industries, and they have found that roughly 88% of the traffic that you're spending money on to drive to your website from paid search by buying your brand name, 88% of it is incremental. That means only 12% of that traffic would you have gotten anyway. Well, not only is almost all of your traffic going to be incremental, it is going to be dirt cheap. Your website is by far the number one most relevant, highly qualified website for that search term in the world. So your quality score for that search term is going to be a 10 out of 10. Your quality score on AdWords determines how much you have to pay. There is no cheaper click for you to get than one on your brand name going to your website. On average for a dealer, it will be $1 to $1.50. Also, that traffic will convert higher than almost any other traffic coming to your website. It's customers looking for you. We have found that traffic will convert between phone calls and web form submissions, around 12 to 15%. So the leads that we're generating off of this spend cost us about $12. Now, to some degree, those may be cannibalizing leads that we would have already gotten. So let's say we factor in another 10, 15, even 25%. Even if we're paying $15 for each incremental lead, those are the cheapest leads you're gonna find available to you to spend your marketing dollars on. And they're gonna convert higher than any other lead in your BDC. You're going to sell a vehicle to roughly 1 in 6 or 1 in 7 of those people. You cannot more wisely invest your marketing dollars than by buying your own dealership name on Google. The same thing goes for your franchise. If you've got your city and your dealership in a search term, you need to be buying that. Even if you're number 1 in organic. We just showed you're only gonna be getting 44, 30%, even less than that on your own brand name. You're gonna get a lower click-through rate on someone typing in Washington, D.C. Ford dealer, even if you're number 1. You've got to be investing in branded search terms and in franchise search terms. If you hook up your Google Search Console with Google Analytics, you're going to be able to see every keyword phrase that your website, that any page on your website shows up for. You're gonna find your competitors are actually in those search terms. It's because Google, even in their organic rankings, Google knows that your website is decently qualified for people looking for your competitors' websites. You should also be buying those terms. Remember, Google's gonna show 3 ads for every local mobile search. You should be one of them for anyone who might be inclined to come visit your dealership. We need to integrate analytics and AdWords. Your agency has to be doing this if they are going to maximize the return on your marketing dollars. There's a dirty little secret in digital advertising, which is occasionally, when we get a great campaign set up, we might copy that campaign over to a new client and then just change that campaign. We won't just build it completely from scratch. Occasionally, someone will forget to change the geo-targeting or not change it perfectly. You will sometimes find that 40, 50% of your marketing dollars are being spent out of state, out of the actual state that you're in. A quick and easy way of checking up on your digital agency, on your website provider, making sure that they are actually bringing paid traffic from relevant geographies to your website is by simply running a report that shows the state versus the traffic that is coming to your site from AdWords. Here's one of our dealers. This is a New Jersey dealer of ours. Only 55% of her paid search traffic that she was getting from the agency she was working with was actually from New Jersey. Now, New York may not be such a big problem for her, but she was shocked to find that she was getting a fair amount of traffic from Georgia, Florida, and California. And not surprisingly, the bounce rates are much higher on this sort of traffic, and the conversion rates are much lower because the ad dollars are being wasted. You need to work with a provider that can track phone calls for you through Google Analytics at the keyword level. You can actually see which keywords, which campaigns are driving phone calls through Google Analytics. You can't do that unless the call tracking provider can integrate back into Google Analytics. When you do that, you can do something very powerful. We have done this for a few of our clients. We have gotten every website form submission and every phone call, the phone number that was calling in as a result of one of our ads. You could get a report every month and then work with the dealer to pull all of their DMS sales data and then match them based on the phone number matching a consumer who actually bought a vehicle's phone number or the emails matching. When you do this, when we've done this, we have found that the dealer is actually getting 150, 200% ROI on their AdWords dollars just from vehicles we were actually able to track were sold as a result of these keyword searches. Now, remember, not every person who comes to your website as a result of an ad is going to call or is going to submit a website form before they come to your dealership. However, it provides a great base. We know that at least $25,000 in margin on the vehicles that we sold came from that $10,000 ad spend. It's a great exercise to go through with your provider. Actually see which phone calls and which lead forms led to vehicles being sold. When we hook up Search Console with Google Analytics, we're able to see every page on our site that that appeared in a Google search result. We're able to see how many times they appeared. We're able to see how many people actually click through to our website. So we can see which ones are actually effective at driving traffic out of Google. So we don't need to rely on a keyword ranking report. We don't need for someone to tell us, oh, it appeared this many times. Google will tell us how many times it appeared. And then we can see how many times someone actually came to our website from that search. Another thing with Google Search Console is that Google is telling the owner of the website, you or your website provider, if you don't have access to this data, about the health of your website. At the end of January, Google is going to begin requiring that websites that take credit card information or require a login, it's going to require them to be HTTPS, to be secured. I will guarantee you that at least half of the websites for the dealers in this room are not secured. This is going to happen next week. Google will begin giving an insecure warning about your website in search results. They are already telling dealers through Search Console if their websites are potentially going to be impacted. But if you don't have access to that data, you don't know. You're just going to find out next week or the next time one of your customers does a Google search and sees that your site is insecure and actually bothers to call you. But Google is trying to proactively tell you right now, but you need access to that data. You're going to be able to find organic search opportunities when you hook up your Search Console with your analytics. You're going to see whether people are not coming to your site for particular search terms because you're not appearing as often, because it will have impression level reporting, or because they're not clicking through, because it will have click-throughs. How many folks in here know what Google gives, what score Google gives their website for site speed? How many people in here have used Google PageSpeed Insights? You put your homepage in there, Google, chews on it for a little bit, and then it spits back a number. 70 for desktop, 69 for mobile, something out of 100. If your dealership's good, you've got something in the 70s, maybe 80s. If it's terrible, it's got something in the 20s or 30s. If you haven't done it, you should. But if you've got Google Analytics and Search Console hooked up, you can actually get a quick report in Analytics that shows the speed score of every page on your website. You don't need to spend several hours trying to figure out all the pages on your website and then single-handedly copying them, putting them into the Speed Insights report. Google gives you an entire analytics report that shows this for every page. You can see, the third most visited page on my website has a terrible bounce rate. It's 85%, and it's got a terrible speed score from Google. There's probably something I need to fix. You can download that report, throw it into Excel, send it off to your website provider and say, look, the third most important page on my website, Google is telling me it's terribly slow, and Google's even telling me these are the 4 or 5 things they recommend I fix. Can you help me? When we link AdWords and Analytics, we have insight into things like how our site links are performing. I encourage and I expect that all of your digital agencies are using multiple site links for your ads. These are links that aren't just going to your homepage, but that may go deeper into your site based on the links that you're putting within your ad. So you may send someone straight into your new inventory or your used inventory. Well, the last thing you want to do is pay for a click that you're sending somewhere that doesn't end up converting. Google will give site link level reporting on conversion if you have set everything up appropriately, if you're tracking calls and form submissions, and if you're linking your analytics and AdWords so you have visibility into your site links. How many folks in here know how many men and women visit their site, and by age? Well, when you set up Google Analytics appropriately and link it with AdWords, you can actually see the demographic breakdown of all your traffic. Up till now, that's only been important for being able to merchandise through retargeting to certain segments of your audience. So you may find that men 18 to 24 are far less likely to actually call or submit a lead than women 45 to 54. But now Google is allowing agencies to change how much money they're willing to spend on particular clicks from paid search based on the demographics. I know from looking at many dealers' data that there are going to be pockets of your customer base, there are going to be women 45 to 54 who convert at 2 or 3 times the rate of men 25 to 34. It's going to depend on what vehicles you sell and in what market, but if you know that the average visitor is 2 or 3 times as likely to convert on your website, you can now tell AdWords, I would like to spend 5 or 10% more for that traffic versus the traffic that doesn't convert on my website. Google has provided this functionality just within the last few months. I encourage all of you, after this talk, to go back and look for, do a Google search for Nissan UK in-store visit case study. Google has not done this with an American car dealer that I'm aware of, although we're trying to work with them to get a case study done. But Google has done case studies in the UK where they have actually measured when people clicked on an ad on their phone and then showed up based on the tracking of the phone, then showed up in a showroom. Google found in their study that 1 in 6 people that clicked on an ad showed up in a showroom. That's not a 16% click-through rate. That's not a 16% form submission rate. That's not a 16% call rate. That's 16% of the people who clicked on an ad appeared in a showroom. That's like a $15 showroom visit. Man, we're lucky if we can get a $15 call. If that's true, if that's even close to true, and again, we're encouraging case studies to be done in the US so we can sort of understand this better. But if anything like that is true, it means that if you're spending 70, 80% of your money still in traditional, you need to rethink getting more of it into digital. How many folks have done RLSA? Remarketing lists for search ads? All this is, someone comes to your website, and when you have Google Analytics and AdWords integrated, someone comes to your website, and remember, Google knows who all of these folks are. 50% plus of Chrome browsers are on Google, or 50% of desktop browsers are on Google. You've got all of these Gmail customers on Google. They know who these folks are. They leave your website and they do a search later on in Google. You can actually target those people through a search ad. Someone comes to your website, doesn't convert, they do a Google search later. They even do a Google search on their phone after visiting your website on desktop. You can present an ad. You can present an ad with an additional incentive for them to come back to your website. But you can only do that if you link your AdWords and your analytics together. Just in the last few months, Google has increased the number of folks that you can do this with 3 times. They have taken the cookie that you can use to track these folks from 180 days to 540 days. So anyone who's been on your website in the last year and a half, you can target in this fashion. So if someone's been on your website and bought a vehicle, you can actually, for the next 540 days, you can target them for service. And you can do it across devices. Dynamic remarketing. Again, as I was saying before, someone comes to your website, doesn't convert, Google knows who they are. If you're advertising on a third-party website through Google Display Network, Google can actually show an ad with an additional incentive because you know that that person was on your website in the past and didn't convert. How many folks in here are doing Customer Match? How many folks in here have heard of it? Most dealers I talk to have email lists, email addresses in their CRM and their DMS totaling roughly 20, 30, sometimes even 40,000. With Customer Match, Google will actually let you upload all of those email addresses to Google. They do it in a highly secured fashion, so there's no danger of there being any security issues. And Google will match all of those email addresses to actual Gmail users. Now, obviously, there'll be a 100% match rate if you upload a Gmail address. But they will also match Yahoo, AOL, MSN email addresses to Gmail users. So they get about a 40 to 50% match rate. So if you upload 30,000 email addresses, you're creating 15,000 users in Google that you know are in your DMS. 15,000 people that you know were in your service lanes in the past. Now, if they go to YouTube and they do a search for do-it-yourself oil change, you can actually put an ad up for your dealership for service. You can put an oil change ad up there. If they go onto Google and do a search for brake work, you know that they've been in your service lanes in the past. You can put an ad up. Now, it's probably not profitable for you to target every person in your marketplace looking for brake work. But it's probably a great idea for you to target the 15,000 people who have been in your service department before and are looking for brake work. Again, all you need to do is connect these freely available tools and take advantage of what Google's trying to do to help you. So I want to stress before we get into questions, one last time, I want everyone to make sure that you have your own Google Analytics account. I want you to have your own AdWords and your own Search Console accounts. I want you to integrate all 3 of those accounts together, and I want you to insist that the third parties that you're paying money to bring traffic to your website are setting up tracking URLs through Google's URL Builder so that you can track the performance of the marketing that you're paying them for. If you do all of these things, you will begin to dominate your marketplace with Google's free data, with Google's free tools. I want to thank everyone here for their time. I will now open it up to any questions.